You know, people are always questioning how your dad made money, right? Or how you got rich, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, from your point of view, do you think like when the McDonald's thing happens, is that when things start changing, or like how do you see it from your side?
So if I can try and say, look, I've always seen things progressively change from our life. Like I look at, you know, when we grew up, you know, I was growing up, you know, between both grandparents, you know, until about, you know what, like about 96, 95, you know, and things had also changed in the country. And then we had also started staying together as a family. And that's actually when I got my first dog. But I've always grown up with dog. And why that was so important, and even this little one here, but because of all the moving around and everything, and, you know, all the things happening around apartheid when we're growing up. I'm 38, by the way, so let me also claim my apartheid
Join the club,
chronological credentials of being around that time. And but what I'm trying to say is that, so my dad was always moving around, and we never really stayed with him because he was always moving around. But so as I said, we stayed between grandparents, and then we finally started staying together as a family with my brother. And yeah, then we stayed in Fairlands, and then we moved to Hyde Park like 97. So yeah, look, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, you'd always been the only black kid, those rich black kids, the only black kid. But I was also the first black kid who played South Africa water polo. You know, I was also the first black kid to be captain.
Wow.
But
wow.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you know, we'd always not necessarily been privileged, but that was always a lot for us. That was always amazing for us. But it was never really, my dad never really like showered us with gifts and this and that and whatever. And I think because they didn't, it's like you kind of realize like, whoa, okay, this is how people live in this, but it makes sense because look how your dad is. Look at how he's making you. Look at how, you know, education is so important. Reading is so important. You know, and so those kind of things kind of naturally, you know, what can I say, absorb into your life going forward.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in terms of this hard work ethic. So, you know, it was never magic. You know, I can't be like, yeah, he got this arms deal, you know, the arms deal tender, and then it's like everything worked out. It's like,
yeah.
You know, then I got my helicopter. Then I got my helicopter.
Grow your own arms.
On the Static logo, you know? Yeah. No, man. No. Dude, this guy worked hard. And, you know, even when I look at my uncle, you know, my aunt, my mom, I mean, this was a doctor from Macau in a village working, not getting paid by all the village people because everybody knows you and your family and they're not going to pay you, but they know you're a doctor and you can help them. And she had a hustle, you know, a whole degree, master's from Harvard, come back to the village, and this is the reality you got it. So I think from both parents, what I can always say that they've given us is this insatiable work ethic, but I think there's also passion in what they do.
Dope.
And I think more passion in what they do. And I think when you're in that zone, and you know, even with this book, Deep Work, when you're in that zone, like when you're a professional athlete, there's just that part where it's almost, you know, and it's almost humanly unattainable. You know, the things that people can do. And, you know, it's like you go and look at just like, you know, even with Lewis Hamilton, you're going to look at how he drives. And I'm a Ferrari fan, so you also got to understand, like, I really critically watch his driving. And, you know, so it's incredible. And, you know, you go and look at how he's emulated his driving to, you know, Ayrton Senna, my dad's favorite driver. And it's like these guys are like driving on the limit. It just doesn't make sense how this guy is driving and he's still on the road. And it's just, you know, it's just a different level of understanding of professionalism, of passion. And it's like what Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Outliers, the 10,000 hours, like what, you know, what makes Tiger Woods, you know how he's been playing. Excuse me? Yes, Serena Williams, you know. McG, you know, whatever he's been doing so good, dancing, playing, whatever he's doing, yeah.
He's an outlier.
Yeah,
He just won't, you know.
Don't worry, dog. I'm a hustler too, dog. It's just the difference between you and I is like I'm first family and I went to white private school, but don't worry, I can do dirtier stuff than you, bro. I just gotta be smarter.
Bro, I want to ask about that. Like, what are the pitfalls or the worst moments or memories you have of being the first black? Because as much as it sounds beautiful, but surely it comes with some bullshit. Like, I mean, first black water polo national team. I mean, there's a tradition of it's just been a white boys club, and here comes this black guy, and then he fucking leads us, and you're a captain. You know, those kind of environments sound like we've heard of Makai and Tini stories. We hear of other, national team first black players, and it's not all rosy sometimes.
Bro, I mean, I get it. Even, when I look at being in Silicon Valley last, like when I was there, from 2015 for 7 years, I think, why I say this is like, I think, you go look at from what it was being a kid to what it is today. And, it's like, and back then, and I look at, what I was telling McG, in 2018, when we went to World Crypto Economic Forum, and we competed and became, we placed 9 and 11 both competition, World Crypto Economic Forum. And, when you look at like, I was the only black guy then as well. And I was like, and it's something, I don't know what happened. Like just before I got on stage, like something shocked me, just being, and it was like a moment I remember, trials at, like I remember trials at like at Gauteng Water Polo, like in grade 10, like this is now for SA. I remember like, dude, I didn't just chow those guys. It was bad, bro. Like we were not even like swimming in the same race, bro.
Whoa, bro.
Like we were like links, bro. Like we were like at least 5-10 meters on average. And I was like chilled, and I was still chilled, and I was just like hammering it. And what I'm trying to say is that, I remember just before we got on, and I remember just before we got in, it's like all these Afrikaans guys used to kick our ass in rugby, all pumped up, steroids, like the pimples are like, guys look like they're about to step on a bodybuilding stage with like about to jump in the pool. I'm just like, am I at the wrong competition? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we also that's when you got introduced to all these things back then, steroids, all this. And we were like, geez, okay, we're obviously not doing the same things, bro. But what I'm saying is that I remember, and now it's like, dude, I remember like, dude, being in the locker room, like everyone's speaking Afrikaans. And, I also didn't understand that. Okay, they're doing that. Okay, now we're all here. You're the only guy from a private school. You're there. You're the only black guy. And everyone's like, okay, this guy's lost. And I'm just thinking like, guys, we're swimming. We're not fighting. Like, and even when we start that, I'm going to swim away from you because thank God I can. In the field, I can't. So here's my only chance. And I remember like, just an anxiety. And I just remember like, dude, this is your chance. Like, this is why there's a reason you're here. Like, I remember even getting up before stage. Like, I remember that moment. I was like, dude, you're there are 20 startups here. You're one of the best. You're all competing here. There's 20 of you, all literally for an algorithm. It doesn't matter if you have a fully built platform, because even out of that 20 companies that competed, only 6 of us actually had a fully built platform. It was all algorithms. Everybody was literally starting and building their cryptocurrencies, all algorithms. So all those companies, like back then, like ShapeShift, MetaMask, all these companies that are big now, back then, were like nothing. But I remember just getting, just about to get on that stage. And, I remember it's like the stage was here, and I was playing that video I showed you now.
Yeah.
With my pitch deck, and still standard Silicon Valley, white people, no black people. And there's like a whole crowd of this in the auditorium, and I'm getting up on stage, and I've like got my hat on. So I had like this whole thing of like having a hat, like wearing a hat, my Bitcoin hat, and like wearing a suit, like going to conferences. And I remember just thinking like, no ways, bro, this is my moment, and I'm going to take everything, and no one's going to stop me. Like, I'm going to take it. And like, that's when I was like, I felt like a wolf. Like, I felt like I have to do this to lead my pack, and no one's going to, and here's my chance. Like, here's a chance for you to present in the world. You've been fighting for the last 2 years at school at this same, private, university, business school, where out of 300 in the class, there were only 15 of us that are black. You had to be proving yourself of why you had built this business, and what was the hypothesis you had was a $11 million buffalo that was sold in South Africa. And that was the hypothesis that you had to build this online investment platform. So when you look at it, it's like, dude, all these things are not happening for nothing. You know what I mean? They're happening for a reason, and I'm here doing it. You know, so I even remember the conversation I had with my dad. And I think the moment where I realized, you know, for him, where he had like kind of made it and his success, and I realized, I was like, okay, like, wow. I think it was when 2017, when I saw him crying on stage when he became president. I was like, wow, okay. And I was like, I remember, I was like, yeah, the last time I saw this guy cry was when my grandma died. So I was like, okay, I know for him, that was like a big moment, you know? You in your prime, because there's a certain time when you're prime, and you got to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. Let's talk about your childhood, man. Like, where were you born in Venda? Nivagai?
So I wasn't born in Venda.
Oh, you're not born in Venda?
No. So this is always the thing. We're always like being questioned about how vendor we are.
So to the vendor people, you're not vendor enough. And to other non-vendor people, you're like, yeah, super vendor.
Bro, you're not everything enough. I'm like an alien. My best friends are like always like I'm an alien, because it's like you're not black enough because you didn't grow up like every other black person.
Jeez,
but then
bro,
when you try and explain it, it's like...
Do you have a vendor name?
I've got two.
A vendor name?
Of course.
Yeah, what are they?
Angwani na Chibasa.
Angwani?
Na Chibasa.
Chibasa.
Angwani.
Chibase.
Chibase.
Yes. Chibase.
Like with the Chivase. Well, with the V, but you say with the Chibase. Yeah, I've seen. Yes. But written Chivase, yeah?
Angwani Chibase. How do you get two vendor names, bro?
So, Angwani is actually a name I was given. It's actually quite interesting. So, both my grandfathers, so they both had cancer, right? At the same time before I was born. And so my father's father, he passed. And then I was given the name Hangwani to forget that I was born around the time. And then, so then my mother's father was still alive. And then, so then I would sit like next to him while I was growing up, and next to like a window, and he was trying to recover from cancer. And so he'd look at me and they'd put my cot next to his bed, thing like in the hospital and then at home. And then he said that this child gave me life and he recovered. And yeah, that's why also with my uncle, that's why I was so close, because, you know, he reminds me how I gave my father or his father life. Yeah, so, and yeah, he's the guy who taught me, that's where I started learning about cows. Even like when I remember pulling out dead fetus, I think I was 3, 4. With my mom, we got a picture of it. So she was a doctor at the time, and my grandpa was a farmer, and in Rasai, just outside of Pretoria. So I was born in Pretoria.
Okay.
Born in Pretoria, little company of Mary. So I grew up between Chawero and Macau.
Oh, Chawero.
Yeah.
Cyril Ramaphosa's son, Tumelo Ramaphosa, wants us to believe that his father, Cyril Ramaphosa, made all these millions that he has made, because he's actually a billionaire, Cyril Ramaphosa. He wants us to believe that this is due to Ramaphosa's hard work, astuteness, and business acumen. I mean, that is absolute hogwash. What this fellow is saying here, it is absolute hogwash. He is trying, of course, as is expected, of course, he is Ramaphosa's son. He is a beneficiary of his father's shenanigans. So, of course, he will come to the media platforms to try to distort history and also attempt to cleanse his father's image. But the correct historical context is that Cyril Ramaphosa never established any thriving business. Cyril Ramaphosa was given money by the openemers. He is their project. He was a police informant, just like Msua Terrell Kota once said. So, he was given money to establish the National Union of Mine Workers, because that's how capital thinks. It thinks well ahead of us. It needed to create a trade union that is going to, to maintain and manage the black miners when they revolt against the system and revolt against the mining companies. So they gave him the money to establish the NUM. Look at what happened. After the unbanning of the ANC, then they pushed him, because they had already captured the likes of Mandela and stuff. They pushed Cyril Ramaphosa to be the ANC Secretary General. Then they later on took him out of politics. He was given shares because, remember, he had negotiated the sunset clause and all of that. This constitution that we have in this country, the sunset clause and all of that, it is what has brought money for Cyril Ramaphosa. So the money that he has made, it is through selling out. So he has been rewarded by being given the shares in all these white-owned businesses. That's how he became a billionaire. Not because he's smart, not because he's got a business acumen, he's astute or anything like that. No. So his son should not come to the media platform to try and distort history. We know our history and have to tell it like it is. Cyril Ramaphosa is rich because he's a sellout. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Tebos Kosana. The name of the platform is IZWI LABANSUNDU, the voice for Africans. Kama Africa.